Okay, this section here I'm going to show more scale-oriented licks. I'm also going to demonstrate some exercises that will help your legato technique and strengthen your left hand. Okay, so I'm going to slow this down so you have a real clear idea of what I'm doing. So it's so and so what's happening here on this lick is I'm incorporating a slide to actually play the note as well as a hammer-on. And once you get it going, you don't pick it at all. You know, it's just strictly depending on the strength of your left hand to hammer on those notes and pull them off and slide in and out of them. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to move that in and out of position. And we're going to stay on the same string for now, just to keep it simple. But we'll take that pattern and move up and down the neck. So, and this is also another type of an exercise. Now, one thing I want to explain about that sort of thing that I'm doing, call attention to the fact that I'm sliding in and out of notes. And, you know, I'm sounding the note by sliding into it. See? So that's a very important thing that you understand, that that's how that note, some of those notes are being sounded. Some of them are hammered on, some of them are pulled off, and some of them are sliding. Actually, I want to show you one more exercise, even simpler than what I've showed you already. There's a little thing that you can do to sort of get used to sliding in and out of those notes, and it goes like this. And you can practice that over and over, and that will help you get used to that sort of motion. I'm going to show you is something that demonstrates how I use these legato technique and maneuver within a scale and actually get from, you know, one point to another across the neck. And I'm going to make this more of like a sort of an exercise that'll be based in B minor. I'm going to show you basically the same lick, only in a different key. It'll be like based around A major. Now I'm going to show you a technique that we touched on earlier in the pentatonic section, a little bit of barring, only in more of a regular diatonic scale type of an approach, and that lick would sound like this. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is a lick that incorporates all the techniques that we talked about in this section, the sliding, the hammering on, and moving across the strings. I've done a lot of records. I kind of lost count, but I think it's somewhere around 11. I started making solo records when I was 18, so I had a lot of time to experiment. I think that's kind of why they're all so different. In some ways that has worked for me, and in a lot of ways it has worked against me. But I think what it is a documentation of my evolution, per se, as an artist or as a musician. On my first record, it was strictly about the electric guitar in more of a heavy metal approach, but like a hyper extended heavy metal, like really complicated, difficult, not ordinary. The average guy playing guitar wouldn't be able to play a lot of that music. That was the idea behind the record that I made, the first record, and there was a couple guys like myself that were making those kinds of records back then, and the idea behind that kind of music was for it to be heavy and aggressive, but very sophisticated, so that the average person would not be able to play those songs. That was what we were trying to do. And people like me and Jason Becker or Marty Friedman, that was the objective back then. And then after you do a record like that, or one or two, then you move into other things. For me, I kind of went back to wanting to be a singer and write songs, and I tried to do that on my second record. I probably wasn't as well versed in that area because I didn't devote as much time to it. But then after a while I started getting into that sort of thing, and I was more interested in singing than I was in playing the guitar. So by the time I made my fourth record, I was more focused on my songs and my lyrics and stuff I wanted to say artistically with my song, not so much with my guitar. And then I would go back and forth, and then the next time I would make an instrumental record, it would be more on a jazz fusion level, and that's the record I made called the Intergalactic Fusion Experience. where I had Jeff Berlin come in and play bass on a few songs, who I've always been a fan of him, and Greg Bissonette, who's an amazing jazz drummer, came in and played drums for me on that record. And that was my take on like a fusion style, like those bands that I used to like I said before, like a Return to Forever and Mahavishnu Orchestra. Those were my bands, you know, back in the day that I really liked to listen to, and so I tried to like pay tribute to those bands with that record. And then I went back again to the vocal thing, and I've always been into R&B and soul music, probably because of where I was, you know, raised in the area that I'm from. And so I would try to pay homage to that music, and I did Wave of Emotion, which was a rock record, but it had a lot of R&B influence, and it was my thing. And I think it took me a while to finally come into a style that's my own as a solo artist. And I think I did that on the last record I made, which was a record called Slow. And on that record, I think I really was able to combine all those influences that I have been into, like the jazz and the hard rock and the soul music and, you know, the blues-oriented stuff. But, you know, at the heart of what I do, I like I said earlier, I consider myself musically inclined. You know, I think, and I excel at playing the electric guitar. You know, and I think that is at the core of everything that I do. Is that I am a guitar player. You know, that's like my vehicle. You know, is the guitar. All right, this section in the video, I'm going to show you some combination licks. And what I mean by that are some licks that combine the techniques that I've showed you in the beginning of the video. So that would include some of the legato-based things and some of the arpeggio-oriented lines that I showed you. And the first one we're going to do will be based in the key of C sharp minor, very sad key. And the lick goes like this. I want to point out a few things on this particular line that I showed you, and that is in the beginning, this sort of thing, I happen to use a lot. Here we are sliding, which is what we talked about earlier in the legato scale-oriented section. And here we're doing a bit of an arpeggio. Once again, coming up, we're starting off with a C sharp minor style arpeggio, and we're adding a seventh, so it's like a minor seventh arpeggio at this point. So you can kind of see why that lick falls into what we're calling the combination licks. That lick that I just played combined a few things. It combined the initial legato-oriented thing that I showed you earlier, and then I come down here, and we see that arpeggio shape that I warned you about earlier in the video. And then we go back to the first arpeggio that I showed you, going from C to G major. Okay, the lick that I just played involves the pentatonic barring technique. And it also involves the arpeggio. And it involves sequencing the arpeggio. So if I played it slowly, you have something that sounds like that. Okay, that lick that I just played started off with a legato lick, which I showed you earlier. And I worked my way through B minor, hammering and sliding, which is another technique I showed you. And I slid down into a B minor arpeggio. And I ended it on a descending arpeggio. Slowly. The favorite albums that I have made, definitely the new one, Slow. That's at the top of the list. I would have to say I like the top three. I only picked three. Well, Slow would be number one. And then I really like the record that I did with Greg Bissonette, the Intergalactic Fusion record. I think for guitar, for the style of guitar that I play, like that really puts it out there, you know, as far as like what I'm capable of on the guitar. And also, I think it's a tie. The third place would be with actually no, I'm going to break the tie. I think the third record would be Mother Head's Family Reunion, only because that record I was so into what I was doing then. You know, I really was into what I was doing, and the songs meant a lot to me, and the people I was playing with, you know, Atma Nur played drums on that record, and he is someone that's always been close to me and very influential as a musician, and so that would probably be number three. All right, in this section I'm just going to show you a few more guitar licks that I use, some things that I like, stuff that I've used on records and that sort of thing. That's why it's called favorite licks. The first thing I'll show you is sort of a wide interval line that I use this type of thing a lot in my playing, and it goes like this. And the part of that is wide interval is, which is basically pentatonic bass, and then it goes into a more scalular type thing. But if you want to get really crazy, you can sometimes go you add that extra note up top. It's another trick. And I'll play that slow so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And I'll play it fast. Comes fast, now slow. That's slow. Okay, here's another favorite lead of mine, and basically what this will demonstrate is how I personally string together arpeggios. As you can hear in that lick, there's some kind of bebop influence with some of the chromatic stuff in there, and I'll play it for you slow. Okay, so that passage that I just played, that sort of thing, that's kind of a part of a solo piece that's on my record. I have a record called Slow, and there's a song, it's actually not really a song, it's a guitar solo that I did, and it's called The Answer, and I'm doing sort of that sort of a thing, and that is taken from that piece of music. Okay, that lick that I just played is another arpeggio style of lick, and it's also taken from the same piece of music from the same record. It's a part of the unaccompanied guitar solo piece called The Answer, and I'm taking arpeggios and sort of stringing them together, and it's a sequencing type of thing that I'm doing. Okay, that lick is a very typical kind of thing I would do, even though it sounds kind of bizarre. It's based over a B minor chord, and I'm kind of choosing some sort of outside notes to give it a certain tonality, almost diminished sound. I do a lot of things where I bend. And I sort of take the same kind of shape and kind of move it around and make sure I'm playing notes that actually work within the chords. And it kind of creates a cool effect. So I will play that slow for you so you can see what I'm doing. There's actually one straight arpeggio in there, which would be this sort of G major thing, which has an interesting sound against the B minor. And that's the lick. Now I'm going to show you a few rhythm-oriented licks that are from some records that I've done. And the first one is from Motherhead's Family Reunion. Okay, this riff that I'm going to show you is from a song off of a record of mine called, the record is called Slow, and the song is called Got It Bad. Okay, so that lick incorporates a few typical Richie Kotzen rhythm moves, and what I would call typical is this sort of thing, where I'm kind of letting this string ring open, and I'm doing that with the low string. I do that sort of thing a lot, and I do a lot of things where I move the bottom of the chord. I make sometimes like switch around in sort of different ways where I'll put the third in the bass. So I'm technically playing a D major there. But then, because the third's in the bass, I can slide it up and make this kind of sort of chord. I don't know what it's called, but. And then the other part that's kind of interesting about this line is where I hold the A string and I'm keeping that constant, you know, but I'm bending the high string. It's kind of a little tricky move right there. You can do all kinds of things there, like it just gives it an interesting tonality. So that's pretty much it. That's the basic approach for that lick. This lick is from a song on my first record called Squeeze Play, and it's based on the odd time signature, and it's also using open strings, kind of an interesting riff. Here it is played slow. Here's one more rhythm-oriented lick that's from a song of mine called Socialite. There are Watch out, turn some of the distortion down. It's a very difficult line because you have to play it on guitar and on bass. So whoever's playing bass there has to be able to keep up with the guitar lick. And what makes it interesting are some of these pull-offs that involve the open strings. Now when you play it fast, that part almost comes off as a gliss, but really what's happening there is that. That's actually what's being played. My three favorite records from other artists would be Stevie Wonder, Talking Book, because that record I remember as a kid. My mother had that record, so I always had it on a turntable. I got that on vinyl. So Stevie Wonder, Talking Book. Let's see, what other records did I listen to a lot? There was a Black Sabbath record that I used to play all the time, and I don't remember the name of it because it was a double album, and when you opened it up there was a woman inside of it in a coffin. I think it was called We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll. I think that's the record, and it had the song in there, had NIB on there. It must have been like a greatest hits. It was some kind of record. It wasn't like the record that was the original record that they had all the songs, because NIB was on there, Sweet Leaf, and they had the song called Changes. I'm going through changes. It's a really cool song on the piano. So that record I used to play all the time. And let's see, third record. Oh, I know what record I used to play a lot was the Iron Maiden record, Number of the Beast. Yeah, I used to play that record all the time. That was like on my heavy metal stage. I'm just thinking of records that I played a lot, you know, and totally different kind of records I just named, but yeah, those are the ones. Okay, what I'd like to do now is show you some of the licks and melodies from the opening song that I performed in the video. The reason I want to do this is because I think this shows, it really sums up all the techniques that I spoke about in the video, and it shows how I personally use them in my day-to-day playing style. You know, I can sit here all day long and show you licks and those sort of things, but they're still just licks, where now what I'm going to do is actually show you things that I've played within songs and, you know, used all these techniques. And what happens is all this stuff becomes more subliminal, and the objective is to be able to play, like I said earlier, you hear something in your head and you translate it to your hands and it just comes out naturally. You don't want to be thinking about any of this when you're playing. But here are some licks from the opening song, which is called Flashback. Okay, so I will play that slow for you. So basically what I'm doing here is using the major 7 arpeggios that I showed you earlier. And I'm just following the chord progression. D major 7, G major 7, C major 7. They spell out the chords. And I'm actually hearing that melody, even though it's so fast, it's kind of funny to call it a melody. But I hear that in my head, and I play it on the guitar. So I can't sing that high, but you can see where I'm going with this. So when you hear those chords and that progression, I hear that melody, and that's what I play. That's the whole introduction, and that came about by hearing the melody, and because I've learned all those shapes and fingerings, I instinctively, when I hear the melody, know where to put my fingers. And that sometimes can take years to be able to develop that. But like I said earlier, everybody's different. So, the more time you spend with the instrument and the more time you spend actually listening to what other people are playing, that will enable you to play with people and hear these melodies and be able to play these notes that oftentimes are less typical than just playing a standard scale and playing off of a scale. That's the kind of thing that I try to discourage. Okay, here's another lick from the song. Okay, actually I probably shouldn't call it licks, but a passage. And the reason I'm showing you this one is to see how you can kind of move these I can't sing that high, otherwise I would for you, but see, I'm using all those kind of arpeggio shapes and those notes that we talked about, but when you play them as melodies, they don't sound like scales. And instead of becoming licks, they become actual melodic passages that you can remember and sing along with, if you can sing that fast. So that passage there that I just played just shows how I'm tying together just totally tying together all these different shapes. And then at the end here is the first time I actually really play a straight scale. And that's more for effect than anything, and it also is for me to get from point A to point B. And it's just an expression there. And then I'm back to playing the normal notes. But there's some licks in there that, that I'll show you because you might be able to use them to kind of break you out of just playing regular scales. And that's this one here that I happen to like. Okay, that lick that I just played is sort of like what I play at the end of the solo in this song. And it's my reason for showing it to you. It does combine some of the things we talked about earlier, the more scale-oriented things into the arpeggios. And it's more, you know, when it's played as a stream of conscious, as a complete thought, you don't realize, you know, oh, I'm playing a scale, or oh, it's an arpeggio. But by showing it to you that way, you can see how they all kind of mold together and become just a playing style. So hopefully all the information I gave you in this video will be useful. I was trying to start off each section with very basic concepts and then later show more advanced approaches to those concepts, and hopefully you can see how I personally apply all that in listening to the opening song that I performed. And that's it. Probably the next time you see me, I will be on stage somewhere performing live. And that's it for now. So thank you very much for buying this video and spending the time. I had a great time making it, and I hope to see you out on the road sometime soon. Thank you. All right, so everybody's got their heroes, right? And the only way to get as good as your hero is to practice, practice, practice.